So we got a couple questions from my students this morning regarding this question on your final exam review. And let me take a moment to share with you a few thoughts about this. First of all, let me remind you, as this table does, that there's several ways to try and investigate the limit of a function. Now, one of them is to look at it with a table, which we see here. And the important thing to see from the table is that I'm approaching the limit of 0 here from the left and from the right. And what I'll get when I fill in the table here is some numerical values that'll tell me the actual limit here. So that's one way to look at this. Another way to look at a limit or prove a limit, or at least get an idea of where it goes, is by looking at it graphically. So in this particular case, I've drawn the function e to the x minus 1 over x. And as we approach from the left, notice as I approach from the left over here, I can see the y coordinate. As I approach from the left, that y coordinate gets closer and closer and closer to 1. Right at x equals 0, what happens? It vanishes. I didn't hit it just right yet. Let's make that vanish. There you go. Undefined. But anywhere close to that, either coming from the left or coming from the right, you're closing in on that limit of 1. Now, the actual problem was to try and look at this on your graphing calculator and get those values. So let's do that. The first thing you want to do is type in the equation. So let's do this in a relatively straightforward way. We'll need parentheses around the numerator. So left parenthesis, second, e to the x. Whoops, that's not e to the x. Let's try it again. Second, e to the x, that'll be above the log key. There we go. And then exit the exponent. So you hit the right arrow to get out of the exponent, then subtract 1. Close up with a right parenthesis divided by x, like that. Before I do a table here, let me just make sure that my settings are the ones that I typically want. So I'll hit the second key, then the window key. What I'm looking for is independent set to ask, dependent set to auto. These other two values, table start, delta table, they don't really make a difference for our purpose here. So from here, hit the second key and the graph key. And if you have some values that are already here for your x, then just delete those with the delete key. Since I don't have any values there, I'll just type in the values for x that I want. Use the negative on the bottom row of the calculator to type in those negative numbers. Negative, actually, you know what? Let's start with negative 0.1 and then get closer to 0 progressively. Negative 0.1, negative 0.01, negative 0.001. So getting pretty close to 0 from the left. And then close to 0 from the right, 0, 0, 1. And then move farther away so we have a nice symmetric spread around 0. And what you can see is that in either direction we approach this, you're getting closer and closer to that number that we can't quite put in. We can't put in a 0. 0 gives us an error. That's okay. We know what happens when it gets close to it, and what it gets close to is the limit. It's that y coordinate. So to recap, we looked at things two different ways. We looked at things graphically. We looked at things with the table, which we see here. The one thing that we can't do in this course anyways is look at things algebraically. But keep in mind those three methods, algebraically, graphically, and with a table or numerically, are three different ways you can investigate a limit. Okay, hope this helps.